ladies and gentlemen, this is Lions Den with another news and commentary. I have some breaking news coming from Atlanta, Georgia, just moments ago. Before I read this article, do you remember a black man named Rayshard Brooks? If you don't remember him, he was the brother that was shot and killed by Atlanta police at a Wendy's because he was sleeping in his car. And this man right there, Garrett Rolfe, Garrett Rolfe and Rayshard Brooks was fighting, and Rayshard Brooks ran away from the police officers, and he taken one of the officers' tasers and pointed to the police officer, and of course he was the trigger man, shot and killed Rayshard Brooks in the back. Well, there's been breaking news lately, right? So, Garrett Rolfe, and this review board, the police review board has decided to bring back Garrett Rolfe, reinstate him back as an Atlanta police officer. You hear me right? You want to know why, y'all? They said that he didn't have due process. So let me get this straight, and I'm going to read this article in a second. This is the same Garrett Rolfe who shot Rayshard Brooks 5 times in the back, killing him, because Rayshard Brooks used a taser against one of the officers, right? And at a Wendy's. So now he's been reinstated. He's got his job back with the Atlanta Police Department. Really? Let me read this article. This article comes from 11 Alive in Atlanta. It says, Garrett Rolfe, the fired Atlanta police officer who shot and killed Rayshard Brooks in a Wendy's parking lot last summer, has been reinstated by the Atlanta Civil Service Board. The board released its decision Wednesday, stating, and listen to this, y'all. I want you to listen to this very, very carefully. They claim that due to the city's failure to comply with several provisions of the code and the information received during witnesses' testimony, the board concludes the appellant was not afforded his right to due process. Therefore, the board grants the appeal of Garrett Rolfe and revoke his dismissal as an employee of the APD. So, you're telling me that this is the same cop that shot Rayshard Brooks 5 times in the back, killing him while he was running away with a taser, and yet they say that he didn't grant due process, and that's why he's back on the force. Wow. Let's continue. Rolfe, who still facing murder charges in the killing of Brooks that are currently stuck in a kind of legal limbo. Yeah, when it comes to police officers, they could have this legal limbo to get away with stuff. Anyway, sought last month to have his firing reversed in a hearing before the board. That same board reinstated Atlanta investigators Ivory Streeter and Mark Gardner, who were fired over the tasing of college students Tania Pilgrim and Messiah Young during the protest last summer in February. The board hears the appeal of firing and other employment actions taken against public city employees. It's not clear if Ross' reinstatement means he will be allowed back on regular patrol duty or resume employment in some other capacity. Yes, he will. If he's been reinstated with the Atlanta Police Department, that means he's going to be back as usual as a police officer. I don't understand this article, but let's continue. Lawyers for Brooks' family said they believe he will be placed on administrative leave, but were not positive. In an afternoon press conference, those attorneys, L. Chris Stewart, who was part of the legal team representing George Floyd's family in Minnesota, and Justin Miller, placed the blame on the city for the outcome, saying they rushed the process to pacify protesters and in so doing subverted real justice. The attorneys said the case was not taken seriously by the city's leaders and that there was a pattern of being ignored in the efforts to resolve a civil case against the city. They said because of the lack of cooperation, they would now be filing a lawsuit against Atlanta. The lawyers said they expected the city to try to reinitiate firing Roth, this time following proper protocols. Roth's attorney, Lance LaRusso, argued to the board last month that his client's situation was practically identical to Streeter's and Gardner's, that he wasn't given enough time to respond to his notice of proposed adverse action, typically a 10-day period before he was fired. The board took specific note of the lack of 10-day notice in this case. The effective date of the discipline was June 14, 2020, and the notice of proposed adverse action and the notice of final adverse action were issued to the appellant's union representative at virtually the same time on June 13, 2020. As such, the city's actions were not compliant with the 10 days prior notice period as required by the code. Roth testified he learned he was about to be fired on June 13th, the day following Brooks' death. Quote, "I received a phone call," Roth said, during the hearing. "And approximately what time did you receive that phone call?" asked his attorney. 3:45 p.m., Roth responded. Documents showed during the hearing suggested Roth had 1 hour to respond in person to his pending termination. "Did you want to appear to give an employee response session?" LaRusso asked. "Yes, I did," Roth replied. Roth said he was an hour away, though, and fearing for his safety to come to Atlanta as video of the shooting was now online. I'm going to tell you something, y'all. This cop knew exactly what he was doing. Rayshard Brooks was sleeping in his car, right? Rayshard Brooks complied with what the officers was doing. Now, all of a sudden, Rayshard Brooks and this officer fought, and he tried to get away with these officers. However, he got one of the officers' tasers, but at the same time, this is the difference between a taser and a gun. And he shot Rayshard Brooks 5 times in the back. And all of a sudden, now he was violating due process. That he basically has a right to be back on the force after he killed a really unarmed black man, which, by the way, he had a taser. It ain't like he had a gun or not. He had a damn taser. Let me continue this. It says, during the hearing of an APD internal affairs investigator testified, accommodations have been made in the past to let officers respond in similar cases. Maybe some different arrangements should have been made for him, but I think there was time restraints involved as well, said Sergeant William Dean. And those time restraints had to do with the mayor's press conference at 5, didn't it? LaRusso asked. I believe so, Dean said. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms announced Roth's firing at 5 p.m. during the news conference. "I don't believe that this was a use of justified deadly force," Bottoms said that day. The attorney representing the police department, Allegra Lawrence Hardy, said former police chief Erica Shields had proper authority to terminate Roth under APD Work Rule 4.250, maltreatment or unnecessary force. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and I think this is why I said that black people in this country don't trust the criminal justice system at all. Because obviously, when you have legal loopholes like this that allow police officers can get away with it and get jobs back, even if he was continue to be fired, he's gonna find some other police department to go to. Trust. Let me continue this. It said Rule 4.2.50 state that APD employees are expressly prohibited from the unnecessary or unreasonable use of force against any person or property, and that they shall only use that force which is reasonable and necessary to effect an arrest, prevent an escape necessary, restrict the movement of a prisoner, defend himself or another from physical assault, or to accomplish other lawful objectives. One witness APD Assistant Chief Todd Cole testified to the shooting of Brooks and said he would have done one thing differently from Roth in the incident, which would have been trying to keep Brooks closer to his car, to use the car as some type of barrier where I could have pushed him into the car instead of being into the wide open parking lot if he ran. I believe the officers acted accordingly otherwise, court said. The officers were trying to show compassion, which that's a damn lie, but continue. They were not overly aggressive. They tried to do everything they could to calm the situation down. So I don't think it's anything other than that I would have done initially when it started. Lawrence Hardy played videos, including body cam from the scene at the Wendy's that were later burned out in protest, that show witnesses who had been observing the interactions between Brooks and officers from the beginning were upset and critical of the officers immediately after he was shot. Speaking to the Brooks arrest, Dean said, "In my opinion, a lot of officers were somewhat apprehensive and feel like they may have been too aggressive. After the outcry over the early protest tasing incident of the college student Young and Pilgrim. But I think on the onset, they were very courteous, professional. They explained themselves. Things went far left when they tried to handcuff him. Prior to that, everything was perfect, peaceful, and cordial," Professor Dean said. No, it's not. See, what they're trying to do that, use that narrative to say that, oh, we didn't do nothing wrong. Police didn't overly aggressive at Rayshard Brooks. And it shows you that he tried to run away because they knew they tried to kill him, okay? He had the officer's taser. He ran away from officers. And he got shot 5 times in the back, okay? That sparked protests and possibly riots around the Atlanta area. But yet they're going to say, well, we tried to do it peacefully. Oh, really? If that's the case, why would you shot Rayshard Brooks 5 times while he was running away from y'all? This is ridiculous. Let me finish this article. It says, Dean also testified that there had been previous instances where officers were terminated without the 10-day notice period. The sergeant said discrepancies on Roth's notice of proposed adverse action, which his attorney had focused on, were the result of typos. And then it continues, said Roth answered a single question from Lawrence Hardy about whether he had a conversation with another individual, Atlanta Police Union Representative Ken Allen, regarding the shooting and his firing, to which he said he declined to answer any other questions from her under the Fifth Amendment. Those questions focused on the specifics of the shooting of Brooks. Devin Bronson, his partner on the scene the night of Brooks' death, also briefly appeared and took the fifth. The 3 board members who heard the pleadings, were Sterling Eves, Clement Elamine, and Robert Hawkins. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the 11 Alive article. Y'all, it shows you that police officers can get away with murdering a black man without any hesitation. It shows you that even while Rayshard Brooks ran away from them and had one of the officers' tasers, he ran away from him and he got shot 5 times in the back. And you got guys like Garrett Roth, who says, well, I've been violating due process. Because they never heard me. They didn't hurt my side. And the Atlanta board allowing that to happen. Well, word on the street now, protesters heard of that verdict, heard of that decision. They're going to have a rally tonight in Atlanta, which means it's going to be protests. Black Lives Matter, all of them going to protest this, because to me, it shows you that he killed Rayshard Brooks, shot the brother 5 times in the back while he was running away at a Wendy's parking lot. And you got these boards are going to side with police. They're going to side with police unions on this. And what's going to happen with the Rayshard Brooks' family now? How they feel about this? There probably was outrage on this, and I'm glad that they're planning to file a lawsuit with the city because of this. This to me shows you y'all that police officers can shoot us, ask questions later, and then the criminal justice system is going to back them up. And that's how it is when it comes to black people in this country. And people will say, well, some of y'all gonna say, well, Lyons, then you have to understand, he had his taser. He had one of the officers' tasers when they shot him. What's the difference between shooting a person with a taser than shooting a person with a service weapon, with a gun? What's the difference, y'all? 5 times in the back while Rayshard Brooks was sleeping in his car. This is crazy, y'all. Y'all let me know what you think about this. Like, click, subscribe, and remember to click the notification bell for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this is Lions signing off. Deuces.